The following program deals with a controversial subject. The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation. Viewers are invited to make a judgment based on all available information. This program contains images which may be disturbing to younger or sensitive viewers. Parental discretion is advised.
Tonight on In Search Of. Is this the gentle caress of a passionate lover or the cold hand of death? Relive this victim's terrifying story in search of ghost lovers. Does the devil take control of innocent people? Can he be driven away by prayers and rituals? We'll look for the shocking truth and meet a real-life exorcist. Automated marvels or mechanical monsters? This scientist says that robots will take over the world, and it's going to happen a lot sooner than you think. Will anyone survive the robot Armageddon? Students enter this college in search of an education. What they get is a crash course in the supernatural. We'll hunt for ghosts on America's haunted campus. I'm Mitch Pileggi, and this is In Search Of. It is whispered that the dead continue to feel desire for the living. Mixing seduction with savagery, these ghost lovers are said to scar their victims so deeply that most encounters are never disclosed. Is the spirit world interested in more than just your soul? In our next story, love and lust transcend the grave.
So I looked over at the corner of my eye, and there's a shadow, this black shadow, like a figure standing over my bed. Well, needless to say, I was very afraid.
There are people being attacked by sexual demons that totally devastate them.
Something made me turn around and look back into the kitchen. And I seen something there I ain't never seen in my life before. It like it scared the Jesus right out of me.
And I did not want to succumb to it anymore. It became very violent.
More substantial than ghosts, more visible than poltergeists. These demons introduce themselves as dream lovers. But what begins in a whirlwind of lust is quickly transformed into an orgy of violence. These predators are known by two names: an incubus which attacks women, and a succubus known to haunt men.
What we're talking about is a real phenomena that attacks real people. And I have to use the word attack. A spirit can visit, they can give inspiration, they can project love. The succubus, the incubus, they project only one thing, and that's sexual attack.
For Kathy Lewis, the incubus phenomenon is very real. After her loved ones died, she turned to the occult to contact them in the afterlife. She used Ouija boards, automatic writing, and a process that involves swinging a pendulum.
I would communicate thinking I was speaking to my father, and then I would write messages out, and it would like swing in a circle or back and forth, and he would start giving me information. There are other people here, would you like to speak to them? So then I started thinking, maybe I can get my father, maybe I can talk to my grandfather and my grandmother, so forth and so on.
Believing that she was in contact with deceased relatives, she became obsessed and thought the force was giving her supernatural powers.
Oh, I couldn't wait at night when my kids would go to bed so I could start doing it. I can take a long tapestry can and burn it down, just like that. From the energy that I would draw from this thing.
But soon after, things began to go very wrong.
One evening in the summer, I went to bed, and I was attempting to go to sleep, and then I'm like, something's in my room. So I looked over the corner of my eye, and there's a shadow, this black shadow, like a figure standing over my bed. Well, needless to say, I was very afraid. My bed starts shaking. Like at the foot of the bed, like somebody's pushing it. And then I'd start to hear like scratching.
This shadowy figure appeared frequently to terrorize her.
I've been touched. My bed's been moved. My covers have been pulled. I've been pushed. I've been slapped.
Dr. Christopher Cutter is a family physician who believes that some conditions stand outside current medical knowledge. He offers his opinion on this case.
You would want to work her up with things like EEGs, CAT scans, MRIs, looking for some abnormal process going on in the frontal lobe of her brain. And if that's all normal, then we really start to run out of options. There aren't too many other conditions that are going to cause those types of events to happen.
The dreamlike quality had disappeared, and there was no refuge to be found anywhere in Kathy's home.
I would certainly recommend she not be messing around with the occult. It seems to be triggering some of the stuff.
This individual had opened up some spiritual doors, practicing various means of divination. She invited evil to get involved in her life in a deep-seated way. And when it happened, she didn't know how to get rid of it.
I don't know what's in this house, but I want it to leave.
The curse of the incubus has yet to be broken despite Kathy's best efforts. The demon remains in her life. Kathy is not alone. Another victim of a predatory sexual ghost is Kathleen Rice. For this former nurse, her dream of a tall, dark, and handsome lover became a horrific nightmare.
In the beginning, it looked like an attractive man. And, you know, in my dreams, obviously I was very attracted to this man.
One night, still unclear whether or not she was dreaming the whole situation, Kathleen confronted the presence.
I turned around and I challenged it and I faced it. I was very angry. When it forces me down, it kind of like sits on me. I sat right up in bed and I went and splashed water on my face because I'd been crying. And I looked at my neck and it was a real burn mark. And that's when I started getting really scared and knowing for sure that this was definitely not a dream. After I finally realized it wasn't a real man, holding this thing that I thought was a man was very painful. Kissing it was like painful, but it still haunts me and it's still there.
Women are not the only victims. According to Bill Shelby, the 18th century home he moved into was already occupied by a 19th century succubus and the spirit of a jealous soldier who loved her.
It was built back in 1782. There's a lot of history to this house. I'd say it had to be about a week when we moved in. We were remodeling this place. And I was over there by the dresser painting. And the door that leads to the upstairs, well, it just kind of opened. About maybe 5 minutes later, the door closed. Then I heard the footsteps go up the steps. Then something made me turn around and look back into the kitchen. And I seen something there that I ain't never seen in my life before. It like it scared the Jesus right out of me. He had like a Union uniform on, and I take it he was in battle or something because he had a bandage on his head, like he had a head wound. And there was blood on the bandage, and he was missing his right arm, and he held something up. It looked like a scalp.
Bill was in uncharted territory, and soon after the menacing appearance of the Civil War soldier, he had an encounter with a beautiful woman from the same time period.
She had like a low-cut turquoise blue dress on. She had real long, light brown hair, and she just stood there and she looked at me. I thought I was dreaming.
It was soon after her appearance that the Civil War soldier began to attack Bill.
And it felt like someone shoved me from behind. I flew across the living room here. Well, at that point, I covered my head, and the door that leads to the upstairs, it was rattling so hard, he literally broke the door. Well, then, I tried to get up, and I tried to run to the kitchen, and he shoved me again, and this time he tossed me against that wall.
At the same time, the spirit of the beautiful woman was beginning to seduce Bill.
Then I started seeing that lady a lot more frequent. You know, I'd come home from work, she was sitting out on a swing that's outside, and it's weird because she didn't really scare me. It's like I felt comfortable with her being here. The feeling I got when she was around, it was the most calmest feeling I've ever felt in my life. I ain't kidding you, like time stood still. She would tell me some things, and like days later it would come true.
Bill believed that when he moved into the centuries-old house, he unknowingly placed himself in the middle of a love triangle. The more the woman's spirit appeared and comforted Bill, the angrier the Civil War soldier became. Bill's girlfriend tried to help clear the house of spirits. She placed a Bible on the staircase, but this only invited the wrath of the demon. In fact, nothing at all has deterred Bill's ghost lover, and he claims that he's still plagued by the paranormal assaults. For these three victims of the strange phenomenon of ghost lovers, there seems to be no end in sight. Doctors have yet to find any medical explanation for this phenomena.
I've actually resorted to using prayer. I've asked priests to see patients. I'm definitely considering now the possibility that there are otherworldly spirits or events that sometimes might be involved.
After consulting religious clergy and medical doctors, they continue to be faced with the violence common to incubus and succubus encounters.
If you feel that an incubus has manifested in your room, banish it. Tell it to leave. Tell it to be gone. And pray.
Are ghost lovers real? Do they crave the essence of the living in order to gain power in the underworld? Be forewarned. That heavenly embrace may be an invitation to hell. Coming up, do the calculations of these robots include a plan to conquer the world? And a look at the disturbing events behind these ivy-covered walls. But first, was this child possessed by Satan? We'll relive the terrifying ritual that may have saved his soul. Ready to look the devil in the eye? In a moment, we'll take you inside the darkest of rituals. Exorcism. As the last resort for those deemed to be in the clutch of Satan, the rites used to purify the damned can be as dangerous as they are controversial. We're entering ground zero in the war between good and evil.
Evil has a human face, and that's why it can exist among us.
I knew that their child was possessed. There was no doubt in my mind whatsoever.
I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you!
The 1973 film version of The Exorcist introduced most of us to the concept of being possessed by the devil. But not everyone knows that William Peter Blatty's bestseller was based on a true story of a boy we will call Robbie. In 1949, a young priest by the name of Father Halloran assisted Father Bowdern, the exorcist in charge of removing the demon.
Almost on every occasion that we were with the little boy, ratings and marks would appear on his body. I know he wasn't doing it, but something was happening, and I know it wasn't self-caused. You could spit right in your eye from about 7 feet. Things happen that ordinarily don't happen. I had a holy water bottle thrown at me, and I looked over there, and there's no one near the dresser, not within 5 feet of the thing.
Robbie's exorcist never gave up on the possessed child. And after weeks of intense sessions, their persistence finally paid off. Robbie sat up in bed with a new look of freedom.
He's gone.
and he said that St. Michael came and drove the devil away. And at the same time that that took place, and I mean exactly the same time, there was a huge burst of light in the college church.
A number of priests later reported that they saw the image of St. Michael floating above the church altar. Robbie's life amazingly returned to normal, and he remained in contact with the priest that apparently saved his soul. The boy grew up and became an engineer, and Father Bowdern was present on his wedding day.
Once in a blue moon, we do see some clinical phenomenon that we don't understand.
Experts like psychiatrist Michael Lardon agreed that the vast majority of patients are grossly psychotic.
About 10 years ago, I worked at Bellevue Hospital in New York City, and there was a woman there who was very psychotic, and we were giving the standard medications that we use for psychosis, and she was speaking in tongues, and it had a religious preoccupation. The medications we gave were not really effective. And then, unbeknownst to us, a group of religious people from the Caribbean came into the ER and performed some sort of religious ceremony on this patient. And the doctors, we stood to the side, and lo and behold, we saw this tremendous cathartic event with the woman. And the next thing we knew, the psychosis had resolved.
Everything is all right now. Yes, Lord.
Now, is that a case of possession? I don't know. Is that a case of psychosis that wasn't amenable to standard medication treatment? Or was this some phenomenon that we don't really understand?
There's nobody that can tell me that the dark side does not exist out there, because we lived it in our home.
One family recently lived through the nightmare of possession, but want to remain anonymous to protect their young son, whom we shall call Edward.
Yes, we're your typical American family, happy and busy doing all the usual things, until about December of 1998, when we saw a distinct change in Edward's behavior. And he suddenly became more violent, more aggressive.
Calm down.
Some of the behavior that he had shown when he was possessed were maybe clawing to the hands. His back would get hunched. He would start huffing and puffing. Sometimes there would be a growl.
Edward's parents were convinced that a demon had taken over their son.
The night the demon spoke to us was probably the most chilling night I can remember.
He'd look different. And finally I said, "Who are we talking to?" And he came out and said, "My name is Red. My name is Red. And he was here to kill you," pointing to me, and Kelly, pointing to my wife. He said, "And after I kill you, I'm going to kill Edward." And at that moment, I knew that we were in a spiritual battle.
It was difficult finding help. The first place we did go was the church.
We had gone through the medical route. We had gone through psychologists. We went to psychiatrists.
The day that I found Judy Goodman was probably the best day of our lives.
Since my birth, I've walked in two worlds, physical and spirit, which means that I see things other people don't see. I see angels, and as the case with the things we're going to be discussing now, demons. My first encounter with Edward. What a sweet, sweet soul he was.
Edward, honey, there's somebody we'd like you to meet. This is Judy.
Hi. Hi, Edward. How are you today?
And there was a proverbial struggle of good and evil inside that little physical body that was very painful to this child. Really don't know how much longer he would have lasted if something had not been done.
Judy asked Edward to draw some pictures for her, and his drawings were shocking.
Edward started drawing an angel that Judy requested, and the angel had flames coming off of its shoulders. And another picture that Judy asked him to draw was a picture of himself. And he drew himself in red and brown colors, which he always used. But he also had a bubble around it, which was the containment to keep the demon inside.
Demon was very much in full form, but it was time to show the dark spirit who it was dealing with.
It's time for you to leave this boy's body.
According to Edward's parents, Judy sent healing energy into their son by simply pressing 2 fingers into his chest. The energy force was so powerful that the metal crucifix he was wearing actually bent.
Kelly and I were amazed And that's all the proof we needed. We knew that we had the right person there.
It's time. Contribute to energy. Hold on to yourself. Project through me.
She was gradually doing a hand movement above Edward's chest, up by his throat to his head. At that point, she instructed Leo to open the window so she could throw the demon back out into the universe. As soon as that happened, Edward popped up. He had a beautiful blue twinkle in his eye, a smile on his face. He hugged Judy, told her he loved her, and hugged Leo and I both. At that moment, we knew our son was back. The joy we felt was overwhelming. We all hugged, we all cried. We knew our son was free from this grip of evil.
And then we all went downstairs for a celebration with the family.
About an hour later, when I took Edward back up to have a shower, we were in the bathroom, and suddenly he headbutted me. He reached out with a clawed-shaped hand, tried to scratch my face.
Calm down. Stop. What is the matter? Calm down. Edward, what is the matter?
The demon was absolutely going crazy. My heart sank. I knew at that moment, for some reason, it had returned.
The feeling I had when the demon returned was truly, it was like we were at a highest high and it was back to about the lowest low.
Kelly and Leo called Judy in desperation, and she quickly returned to the house to face the demon once again.
I had to take immediate control of the situation and pull in every bit of energy that I had, everything that my body could house. We had to just get the child in a immobile position, and I actually had to leave my body, go inside the body of the child. And I remember very clearly bringing that energy back inside of me.
Judy was laying on the floor, and for a split second, I saw her hands turn into the claw shape. And then they rested again. She sat up, extremely tired, exhausted. Edward's demon behavior came to an immediate stop. He jumped down off the bed onto Judy's lap and hugged her again. After witnessing the second exorcism, I knew in my heart everything was fine.
I know that either we would have lost our son or we would have been dead at this time if it wasn't for Judy Goodman. It's amazing to see Edward today. A short year and a half later, he's just a perfectly normal kid, loves sports. Myself, being in the medical profession, I would probably be one of the last people that would resort to something like this.
We really couldn't find very many people that had any knowledge or information about this. So I've written the book in the hope of helping other people, other children, to find help if this is truly their problem.
I believe that all of us are conscious of a certain amount of evil within all of us. But anybody could be possessed. Nobody is excluded. It is
Later on In Search Of, has the devil enrolled at this prestigious university? But first, are androids the tool of man or the implement of our destruction? You may never look at robots the same way again. Visions of the future predict a world populated by robots, programmed to do our bidding. But could this digital dream turn into a high-tech nightmare? Will artificial intelligence surpass our own intellect, turning us from master into slave? Join us for a glimpse of tomorrow and decide for yourself if we are facing a robot Armageddon. Man-made machines run our lives. They control our power plants, communication networks, and national defense systems. Now fuse that superintelligence with mobile robots. Arm them with flamethrowers, chainsaws, and 50 caliber rifles. Give them the power to swim, fly, and even reproduce, and you may glimpse a dark and deadly future.
We're looking to a future with machines having much more intelligence than ourselves. How do we treat creatures less intelligent than ourselves? How do we treat cows and sheep and chimpanzees? Not very well at all. They're in zoos, pets, or we eat them. So if we're looking to machines being more intelligent than us, the best we can hope for perhaps is that we're human pets.
The 21st century dominant question will be, I believe, who or what should be dominant species on this planet? Do we build gods? Or do we build our potential exterminators?
Fascination with robots has fueled man's imagination for decades. But recent advances in the creation of a high-tech brain, or artificial intelligence, is about to revolutionize robotics.
Artificial intelligence in general is evolving about 1 million times faster than our human brains. As human beings, it took us about 1 million years for us to double our brain capacity, whereas our computer chips are doubling every year or two, so about 1 million times faster. So that means by about the year 2020, we will be able to make computers with vastly superior computing capacities than our human brain.
Up to now, only science fiction has captured the potential of artificial intelligence when it links with robotics. But now that fantasy is on the edge of becoming reality.
Robots, machines can communicate and understand in parallel. Thousands upon thousands of messages all around the world at the same time. Enormous advantage when we look to machine intelligence.
At the Cybernetics Lab at the University of Reading, Dr. Warwick has robots that use artificial intelligence to learn and communicate.
Nibbler and Zoidberg are two of our latest robots. They've got ultrasonic sensors on the front and also some on the back. They use these for detecting obstacles and so on. They've actually got infrared signaling on their heads, and they can transmit signals to each other so they can communicate. They know where each other is. But because they're communicating to each other, one robot can tell the other, when you're in this situation, do this. When you're in that situation, do that.
These artificially intelligent robots are some of the first primitive models. Generally, they have the equivalent brain capacity of a toddler. But with breakthroughs in technology occurring at an exponential rate, the next step may be a leap to highly intelligent robots.
It is far more than merely processing a little bit of data and coming up with a pre-programmed response that is almost meaningless. Far, far more than that. We have robots now with robot brains that can learn and adapt.
These robot warriors are the creation of Mark Pauline and Survival Research Labs.
I think that in many ways, the experiences prefigures, a future where machines really will be alive, and we really have to treat them with sort of a certain kind of respect.
Are these machines pointing to a more sinister future where intelligent robots are not only smarter, but more violent than humans? No one knows. But some scientists do see a technology spinning rapidly out of man's control.
So probably around 2040, 2050, potentially we could have machines that have computing capacities like trillions of times above our present level in the human brain. So humanity as a species, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to make these sort of like godlike, potentially massively intelligent machines this century or not?
Many scientists believe this is a dangerous threshold that could doom the human race.
If this gap keeps narrowing between the human intelligence level and the robot artificial intelligence level, should humanity allow that to occur? Because if these machines become a lot smarter than us, then we become number two. And then our fate, our destiny, then depends on the machines.
Will robots take over the planet? Could humans become obsolete? The stunning answer when we come back.
This program contains images which may be disturbing to younger or sensitive viewers. Parental discretion is advised.
Could a new species of automatons replace every person on Earth? Two unstoppable forces are driving the race to develop highly intelligent robots.
One is just the sheer economic momentum. I mean, the whole world economy will be based on very smart robots, I believe. 50 years into the future, instead of spending our money on housing and cars, we'll probably be spending our big ticket money on robots. And the other big issue, of course, is the military momentum.
The military has already deployed robotic weapons, including unmanned aircraft. Police bomb squads use robots for dangerous situations. The technology emerging from the military sector only fuels private research, both competing for the most powerful robots. Many see it as the next technological evolutionary step, but at what price?
We've seen what nuclear weapons do, and somehow we've managed to keep a lid on it largely for quite a number of years. But intelligence isn't like that. Realistically, I can't see any direct way, politically, of actually stopping us getting into the situation where machines more intelligent than ourselves actually take over.
If these artificially intelligent robots decide our destiny, it will be a future where mankind will have the significance of the lowest form of life, if we are allowed to exist at all.
Once we have switched on machines that are more intelligent than ourselves, not only are we not going to be able to switch them off again, really they will be running our lives for us. We will have deferred our existence on Earth to them.
Of course, the human race does have one advantage. Robots can't reproduce. Or can they? Scientists are researching a robot that can create another robot with almost no help from humans. These machines possess incredible strength, and their metal hides are far tougher than our fragile skin. They do not know fear, nor can they feel pain. It is hard to imagine that they would show mercy to an obsolete species.
For humans, I'm afraid life's not going to be very pleasant. As a very, very low intelligence being on Earth, we'll be treated perhaps something like cows or sheep or chimpanzees are treated now.
Will man become a living specimen for the amusement of these godlike machines? Will the automated servants of today become our masters tomorrow? If only the strong survive, this may be the face of the future. A blood-drenched asylum, ghostly burial grounds, satanic imagery. What evil lurks on the grounds of America's most haunted campus? Find out next on In Search Of. Stroll down Fraternity Row on any college campus, and you're bound to see some hellish behavior. But the students of one university claim their biggest bash is thrown by the anguished souls that haunt its ivy-covered halls. Was this college built on sinister ground? Our story takes us to Athens, Ohio, for a tour of the haunted campus. Ohio University, nestled in the middle of America's heartland, a seemingly ordinary college in an ordinary town. But when the sun goes down, there emerges a far different and darker scenario.
It's not an abnormal situation for someone to say, yeah, we had random lights coming on in our dorm. Who are you?
A couple buildings on this campus are haunted. Several things are unexplainable on this campus.
I don't think anybody should really be closed to the possibilities of supernatural things going on here because that's just the nature of the area.
Athens, Ohio was settled in 1797. Ohio University, the first college in the Northwest Territory, was founded just 7 years later. The school is located in an eerie spot. Whether by coincidence or design, no one knows.
There are 5 cemeteries surrounding the entire campus, and these 5 cemeteries form a circle. A girl was studying there late in the
Graduate student Ben Shoemaker is an expert on the university's haunted history and gives ghost tours of the campus.
Now, if you were to actually link these cemeteries in a straight line, you can form a pentagram.
The pentagram is a symbol of the occult. All the buildings within this pentagram are alleged to be haunted, except for the administration building at the pentagram's exact center. Graduate student Carrie Brannon claims she's had ghostly encounters during her years at the university. Her first occurred during her sophomore year when she lived in Wilson Hall. Legend has it that this dormitory is built on top of an Indian burial ground. At first, her roommate thought that Carrie was responsible for the unexplainable events.
Things would just come up missing. Lights would come on in the middle of the night and be like, Carrie, why'd you leave the light on? And I would be adamant that I did not turn the light on, and we would just never know. I would have this recurring dream that there was somebody hovering over me when I was asleep. It was dark, and I would get up, and I would still see them.
But when she turned on the light, there was no one there. At first, she thought her nocturnal visitor was one of her roommates, or the product of an overactive imagination. Then her dream took an ominous turn.
One night, spring quarter of last year, my roommate, who has the other room upstairs, her boyfriend was sleeping in there, and I had the dream again, except this time I felt hands around my neck, and it scared the daylights out of me. I ended up going downstairs and just sitting up on the couch.
The next morning, Carrie told her roommates what happened.
And my roommate stopped me, and she actually dropped her spoon because we were all eating breakfast, and she said, oh my gosh, she said Dylan, which is her boyfriend, had woken her in the middle of the night and accused her of putting her hands around his neck. And she said, you know, Dylan, I didn't do that. And he said, well, you know, I felt someone with their hands around my neck.
Carrie still can't explain what happened that night, but the memory will be with her forever.
Every time I talk about it now, even now, I get cold chills. I'm not one to be, oh, there's ghosts in my house. But when someone has the exact same experience with you in the exact same night, the same level of the house, you have to ask yourself, what happened?
Carrie's story isn't Wilson Hall's only ghostly tale, nor is it the most frightening. In the late 1970s, the dorm was the home of a young woman who reportedly practiced witchcraft.
Dark spirits.
Her neighbors were accustomed to hearing her chant, but one night was different from the rest.
They also heard a very loud scream.
When dorm officials finally unlocked her door, they found her lying there, dead.
All over one wall, there were all these different drawings, pentagrams, symbols that no one really could understand. It was all drawn from this girl's own blood.
School officials tried to paint over the walls, but witnesses alleged that the young woman refused to be silenced.
Even though they painted over all the blood, all the different things that had been written on the wall, somehow they always seemed to bleed through.
Other ghost stories have been traced to the university's hidden past. We'll share the dark secrets of the haunted campus when we come back. Ohio University has earned a reputation as America's haunted campus. A few years ago, a group of young women allegedly spotted a ghost while exploring the catacombs of Jefferson Hall.
They were walking through the hall and they found an open room. They looked inside the room and they saw this old lady. She was hovering above a chair, about 1 inch off the chair. The woman was transparent.
Frightened, the girls quickly ran to get a resident advisor.
They brought the RA back to the room and found that the room was locked, and that once they got inside the room, there was no one inside.
Perhaps the eeriest place on this ivy-covered campus is the complex known as the Ridges.
Some people would consider this the paranormal epicenter of Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. I've been up here at night before, and I will never come up here at night again. You wouldn't catch me dead here.
Today, most of the Ridges buildings are closed. But for over 100 years, it bustled as a lunatic asylum.
What you see on the outside isn't always what's on the inside. A beautiful building and beautiful grounds is not necessarily what's inside.
Filmmaker Anne Houligard recently finished a documentary about a particularly gruesome period in the Ridges' history.
In the early 50s, people who were put into the asylum sometimes absolutely should not have been there. Old age, homosexuality, menopause, or female trouble was sometimes the diagnosis people were admitted for.
No matter what the diagnosis, the treatment was the same.
Dr. Freeman, who sort of created the ice pick lobotomy, stopped at Athens Asylum many times and performed these lobotomies to 40 patients at a time.
It's said that evidence of unspeakable suffering can still be found inside today.
You see all these different signs that patients used, pentagrams, you see 3/6s, you see different things that patients actually carved into the wall. You see different stakes in the cement, and you have to ask yourself, why would there be two stakes basically at arm's length in a wall for it?
One former grad student told Ben of the Night that she and a friend used the underground tunnels that connect the buildings.
She looked over to a wall and she saw in blood, I was never crazy, and it was written there by a patient who had killed themselves.
You can't help but feel there are unresolved issues, injustices, souls crying out that still want to be heard when you come here. You can really feel their presence.
One patient is particularly famous for the indelible mark she made here. In December of 1978, Margaret Schilling went for a walk and never came back.
And they did a search through the whole asylum for her, and they couldn't find her. And after a few weeks, they gave up. But 5 weeks after she was thought to be missing, the custodian found her up in the attic.
Margaret Schilling lay dead on the ground, her arms crossed on her chest.
She was nude, and her clothes were in a pile next to her. And her body had somehow decomposed on the cement and left a perfect image, outline of her body.
I've seen the actual stain on the floor where Margaret Schilling actually lay down and died. The janitors, they've tried to clean it so many times. You can see the scrub marks where they've tried to get rid of it, and it just won't go away.
Today, many students are too afraid to venture up to the grounds. Ghost stories like these have stirred up controversy on campus.
The university is very sensitive to the haunting stories. They don't want it necessarily to come out that they're the haunted campus, the haunted Ohio University.
University officials may try to deny their existence, but the poltergeists on this campus seem determined to make their presence known. And until another explanation can be found, the flashing lights, frightening figures, and noises emanating from empty rooms will all be considered the handiwork of the ghosts of Ohio University. Thanks for watching In Search Of. I'm Mitch Pileggi. Good night.